Okay, everyone, please take a seat. Everyone, take a seat. Everyone, boys, Adam, David, take a seat. Everyone, take a seat. Girls, Gabby, Mariam. Everyone, take a seat, please. Girls, please. Rana, take a seat.
We are not going to ask. You have the badges. Everybody has a pamphlet. What does the pamphlet say? Our session start. Look at the start time of session 1. What's the time now? We are 2 minutes behind because of the seating down issue. All right, guys. Servants, please come join. Sit in each line. I need to have a servant in each line, please. Okay. How did you guys like workshop 1? How do you like the story of Charles Templeton? Did you see? Did you see? He was kind of like a pastor for a lot of people, and all of a sudden he had doubts that he couldn't deal with. Who can tell me something about Charles Templeton that you noticed? Yes, Mark. He was what? Okay. Does he consider himself an atheist or an agnostic? Agnostic. Okay, very good. So what is the difference between an agnostic and an atheist? Who can tell me the difference between agnostic and atheist? Yes, Martina. Can anybody else hear Martina, or you're busy talking? Okay. Can you listen? Show respect to each other, please. Yes, Martina. They can't possibly know. They can't, they say they don't have a way to even know. All right. They cannot know, for sure. Okay. All right. So that was an interesting beginning. And now you see how doubts can really lead you to something very strong in faith, or can lead you really in a very dark path. Okay. We're going to hear from our beloved Abuna Tobia. Abuna Tobia, of course, you all know him. He served with us served many of you in Sunday school, and we're very happy that he's back in this capacity after being part of the Defenders group. Now he gets to be a strong defender on a much bigger level. So thank you, Abuna Tobia, for agreeing to be here. Abuna Tobia is going to talk to us about, in session 1, about doubt, dealing with doubt. The challenge of faith.
Absolve me, Abuna. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God, amen. I'm very happy to be here. Not gonna lie, I'm a little bit nervous. Sitting, being in the presence of Abuna Anthony and all the servants that, growing up, I'm the one learning from them. I'm very happy to be here. And actually, the idea of apologetics is something that's very important. And the concept of being able to stand up for what we believe, it's not something that is nice to have or it would be cool if we can. It's a must. It's a necessity in the world we live in today. Because you see how the world is around us. You see how, the challenges with everything around us. You see how people in school and in general in society today, how they react to when we're different, or when something doesn't line up with their agenda, or when we believe something that they don't, right? We live in a world that claims unity and claims oneness, but in reality it's a world that is trying to, quote unquote, unite people through being separated, that everybody should be different, everybody should be individual and unique, which basically means there will never be unity, right? Because for us, yes, God created us all unique, but to be united, right? To be like we are all pieces of the same puzzle, not different pieces of different puzzles that are supposed to coexist together, right? And one of the biggest challenges that we face in today's world is faith. The idea of faith, believing in something, right? Having a belief in something. And so the first thing we'll go over is, what is faith? I don't know where I can... Okay. All right. So, when it comes to faith... okay. The dictionary definition of faith is what? It is the complete trust or confidence in something, or in someone or something, right? And another definition is strong belief in God or in the doctrines of a religion based on spiritual apprehension rather than proof. The idea of faith, when we talk about faith in the context of religion, is being able to believe something without having 100% proof in front of you, like solid proof that you can grasp with your hands. Correct? And we see in the book that we're reading, you see in many examples, you see how someone who was a pastor at some point and, in front of everybody, looks like they have faith and he's somebody that's bringing people to Christ, and he was hit with doubt and he fell, which shows that, proof that faith is not necessarily something easy realistically for us to have or for us to maintain. And then, of course, when it comes to the biblical definition of faith, out of many verses that are that talk about faith, I think Hebrews 11 verse 1 really sums up the definition of faith. Now, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Things hoped for. So with faith, there always has to be hope. It's not just about trying to convince myself, right? That I believe. There has to be hope. So that's basically when we talk about the definition of what faith is. But we want to really focus on the challenges when it comes to faith. So first, in order for us to recognize the challenges and to talk about, the difficulties of having faith in this world or whatever the case may be, we first need to know what are the goals of having faith, right? We may think that, and if I ask you, actually, let me ask you this question. What is the goal of faith? What's the goal of having faith? Show of hands. Let's make this interactive. Okay, back there. Yeah, because if I don't hear from you, I'm just going to pick on you. Yeah, Bishoy. Huh? To go to heaven? What else? To receive peace. Okay. All right. What else? What's, honestly, I don't want Sunday school answers. I want real answers. Go ahead. To bring God to others, okay? Allah alaik. Allah. ده يعني ده انا شويه وهديله الصليب بقى هو اللي يقوم يتكلم. Okay, what else? What else? What do you guys think? When we talk about faith, right? A lot of the times, as you see, all the answers are يعني talking about bringing people to God, us reaching heaven, believing in whatever اللي انت قلته الكلام الملعبك دوت اللي احنا ملناش دعوه بيه, right? Like believing in something associated with God and things like that. We take it from this side always. We take it from the side of me believing in God. But actually, the goal of faith, there are so many other things that we have to consider when it comes to faith. Like recognizing our true value and purpose. The idea of faith is not just recognizing God's presence. It's not just believing in God's presence. But it's also being able to recognize and feel how much God values us. How much God values us. One of the biggest issues, and I know you would agree with me when we talk about it, is the idea of what is my purpose in this life, in this messed up world that I find myself in. What purpose do I have? Why am I here? Right? A lot of times whenever we go through trouble, we think about, I'm garbage, I'm nothing, what's my worth? And actually faith is one of these things that helps us recognize how much we are valuable to God, that we have a true value and purpose in the eyes of God. Faith helps us be a source of love. Can anybody say that they love their parents or their friends without believing in them? Is that possible? Right? It's not possible. When we talk about love, there always has to be faith. That's why even in marriage, and you guys are far off from that, because we have to focus on our school and all of this stuff, right? But when it comes to love, right, they always say, when you ever hear about anything in marriage, that people have to be faithful in marriage, right? They have to be faithful in their love. And this applies to friendships. It applies to our relationship with our brothers and sisters, with our parents, everything. So faith is associated with love. Also, faith is associated with joy, right? To have joy in our life. What's the difference between happiness and joy? Joy is internal feeling. Okay, what else? أيوة أنا مستني بقى أيوة ها. That's actually deep. لا, give him a round of applause for this. لا بصراحة. Huh? He said that joy, he said that happiness is temporary and joy is like forever. And actually this is true. Happiness is very temporary, right? And it depends on the situation that I'm in. Like, if I'm in a good mood, I'm going to be happy and all those around me will be happy, right? If I'm upset or I'm sad, هنكد على نفسي وعلى عيشة كل اللي حواليا, right? This is usually what happens. Some of us especially كده, when it comes back, like this is where usually fights with our parents and things like that comes from, or problems with our friends, because we all have that, and one person that when they're upset, they're not just going to leave it on themselves. They upset everyone around them, right? لازم, everyone should feel it. And this is happiness. This is why happiness is temporary. But joy means that I'm able to still be calm and happy even through tribulation. That takes faith. So one of the most important goals of faith is for me to have joy, especially that we know that we live in a world that has many tribulations. Nobody is above troubles. No matter how much we run away from our troubles. If I have problems in the church, I want to go to a different church. If I have a problem with the service, I want to go to a different service. Everywhere you go, there will always be trouble. I don't like this school. My friends don't go to this school. Or there's drama here. This مش عارف ايه. No, every time, right, we feel like, لا, this is مش عارف ايه. This is all these distractions, everything, us running away, is because we are not able to be happy. We're not able to be happy eternally. We're not able to have joy. We need faith in order for us to have joy. Right? And of course, faith helps us have peace in every situation. Right? One of the things that we always hear, especially in the church, whenever something bad happens, is what? Or whenever a tough situation, it's something our parents always say. ربنا معاك. Right? ربنا معاك. May God be with you. May God be with you. Why? Because the presence of God and believing in God's presence helps us have peace, even in the tough situations. And of course, whenever we have faith, it helps us have patience or have long suffering. Being able to be patient in tough situations, right? I'm going through this because I want you guys to get the understanding of what are some things, especially from the book, when you read some of these cases and some of these stories, what are the things that we're missing with some of these people when you look at it at a deeper level, in order for us to define faith in a correct way. In this retreat, the one thing that will really help you is you have to be able to define what faith really is. In order for you to start being on the right track, you have to define what faith is. So that's why we're spending time talking about the goals of faith and things like this. So when it comes to long suffering, right, the difference between just regular patience and long suffering is what? Long suffering is being able to be patient for a long time. This is not something that is humanly possible, kida, on our own. It doesn't happen. And this is something that is critical for us to have faith. And of course, being kind and recognizing the goodness of this world. Real quick, what do these things, all these things that we mentioned, do they remind you of anything? ها الله عليك سقفوا له تاني. الواد ده مذاكر قبل ما يجي على فكرة. Right. So, the fruits of the Holy Spirit. So this actually shows something, right? All this stuff that we're talking about, and we're talking about real world things. A lot of us may think that, oh, well, the Bible, Mr. Broccoli Head, yani focus up here, please. Huh? Okay. All right. So all these real world situations and everything, as we can see, all the different qualities that we want in our life, they're all in the Bible, and they're all fruits of the Spirit. And how can we say that we want these qualities without believing? It shows how practical faith can be. Okay, some common challenges of faith. So we talked about different goals, وحلوة قوي, and Abuna said some nice things, right? So let's talk about some common challenges. What is the number one thing that anybody who doesn't believe will always ask you for? It's mentioned up there. For proof. Prove it. خلاص يا حبيبي. أنا قلت سقف، أنا ما قلتش سقف. Stop. احنا نسقف لمارك بس. Okay? When it comes to really facing the challenge of faith, the first real common challenge is the challenge of proof. Right? Being able to prove how, prove to me that God exists. Prove to me, how can you prove to me that there is a God when we have مثلا suffering? How can you prove to me that God exists when مش عارف إيه? And then if we start believing, then we start, prove to me that the Orthodox Church is the correct church. Everything is proof, right? Evidence. This is a common challenge. This is a very common challenge. And we'll talk about why. The next thing is something we overlook a lot, which is wrong or false teachings. A lot of the time, people will try to prove the faith or will try to prove things to you, but there is some things in there that are false or some wrong teachings in there. Or people will try to convince you of the wrong thing in the first place, right? So it's another challenge that we face, externally and internally. There are wrong teachings that can take place within Christianity. What do I mean by this? Like when we look at different denominations, for example, right? Does everybody believe in, when we come to the details, does everyone have the exact same faith as we do in all the Christian churches in the world? No. So this is an internal struggle. Externally, of course, when it comes to wrong teachings, is the different definitions of God. We're all going up the same mountain from different sides, and we're all going to reach the peak, right? All these different things. All I have to be is spiritual. I am not atheist. I am agnostic, right? The different things that can pollute faith in my mind and in my heart. Wrong teachings. And it's something overlooked sometimes because we say, well, I know what the truth is. But the reality is all it takes is for certain things to happen. And just like the book that we're reading, a pastor or a preacher, because there are some things that are shaky inside our heart, can cause us to go astray very quickly. And of course, when we talk about faith, there has to be a spiritual aspect. Whenever there's faith, there will always be spiritual warfare. Right? If we're talking about faith and faith being spiritual, then know that 100% there will be spiritual warfare. Okay, so these are the three things, kid, that we're going to basically talk about real quick. And I promise we're going to get out of here either early or on time. Okay. The idea of proof. The idea of proof is very, one of the things that really burdens all of us. Not just when it comes to faith, but in general. I'll even give you an example, a very simple example. I'm sorry to any teachers here or anybody that, and to parents. When you do math homework, what is one of the things that the math teacher, or I don't know if you guys still do this, because this is a crazy generation, but back in our days, like a few years ago, whenever you do a math problem, you have to what? You have to find X. سقفوا له يا جماعة. I'm really worried. Find X. أيوة جبت التايهة. طب ماشي هنfind X وبعدين. What is the one thing that the teacher asks for? Circle your answer. What grade are you in? انت Canadian صح؟ ملناش دعوة بيه ده، ملناش دعوة. Just kidding. Show your work. Yes, برافو عليك. Show your work. Who said show your work? سقفوا له يا جماعة، سقفوا له. Show your work, right? Show your work. The teacher always asks us to what? To show our work. Show the proof that you got the answer. So even when it comes to school and when it comes to homework, everything is about show your work. We live in a world that questions everything, right? This is not necessarily a bad thing, by the way. I'm not saying this to be a bad thing. I'm saying this is a challenge. And whenever there's a challenge in our life, by the way, this is something like a general rule of thumb we should all have. When we face a challenge, the worst thing to do is to run away from it. Because if you're not able to face the challenges that are in front of you in life, and you run away, this is going to be the pattern that will always happen. In everything. Right? We live in a world that produces its own proofs. And its own truths as well. Right? And we see a very good example of this in especially the month that we're in right now. Right? People make their own truths. People today, you see people defining the definition of gender, the definition of different things, different agendas being applied as truths, even to the point that these things are fed to little kids in cartoons. Right? So this is what we live in. The third thing is, as I said earlier, that we live in a world that promotes the lack of unity. And I'm going to touch a little bit on this. All right. You see, مثلا, the way certain political groups or certain movements are, right? They say everyone has the right to do what they want. You have the right to be unique. If you identify as something, you have the right to do that. You should be different. You don't have to be the same. And they say this is how we are united. Is this unity? When every single person is on a different level or a different, everybody kida is chaotic, there's no order. What does this do? I'm uniting people and being separated. Does that make sense? Let me say it again. When I encourage people to live on their own kida frequency, right? To be كل واحد in their own little world, very independent, doesn't need anyone. I'm right, everybody's wrong. This attitude being fed. If you're a boy, identify as a girl, you have the right to do that. If you are مش عارف, you believe in this religion, you have the right. If you feel that if you're a boy and you're attracted to other boys, this is your right. You have the right to. You are right. Everyone else is wrong. This is the attitude being fed to us today. I'm not saying something that is strange, right? So what is the result of this? That everyone is united in what? In chaos, in separation. And this makes it very challenging for us because as Christians, the goal of Christianity, God's goal for us is to unite everyone. He created everybody different in order to complete the same puzzle. Not like what the world is trying to teach us. The world is trying to teach us that everybody's different and they are a piece of their own puzzle. When you put everybody together, they make it some chaotic nonsense. Right? But God's goal for us is that everybody being a different piece of the puzzle completes the same picture. There's a very big difference, and that's why the world fights that. And the devil knows that in unity there is strength. So how do I address this? It's by one simple thing. All these different challenges that we're talking about can be addressed when it comes to proof to one thing: complete research. Complete research, not just one side. You'll see, if you've read the book, or as we go through, you'll see how the author goes into a journey to find the truth. He goes into a journey to find out everything. Many of us fall into this simple mistake. And one simple mistake. This mistake is that when I have a doubt or I have a question, I look at one side of things. Usually, the more common thing or the more available thing these days when you look online is everything that's not on the Christian side. So I look at that and try to prove Christianity wrong rather than trying to understand why it's correct. When I do this, I'm biased. How many of us here, if you ask somebody's opinion about something, or when you go ask your parents, we claim that our parents are biased, or this is not fair, this is not right, you guys are biased, you don't understand. Yet we do this every day whenever we go research something in an incomplete way. One of the biggest challenges, if you ever find yourself in a debate with an atheist or somebody who doesn't believe or somebody that has doubts, is they want to argue for the sake of arguing. Today, this is becoming more of a trend. They want to ask questions, but they don't want to hear the answer. And any answer you give, their goal is not to understand. The goal is to, how do I prove your point wrong? So we have to be very careful with this with ourselves. And we're going to talk about doubt and the big misconception that, unfortunately, we are raised in an environment that traditionally looks at doubt like it's a sin. And we're going to talk about that when we talk about doubt. And this is actually very wrong. Doubt in of itself, everybody goes through that. It's how you address doubt that matters. It's how you address the questions that you have that matters. Okay? But the idea here is when I research something, it has to be the complete image. It has to be everything. I have to actually, if I'm looking for the truth, if I'm looking to have faith, I have to understand. And I have to grasp something. That when I talk about faith, I believe in something that I don't always see in front of me. And I have to understand that if I want to consider faith, I have to take that leap. And you'll see many examples of people, and especially there was a video that was associated. I don't know if you guys watched this video or not, but it's associated with the book that we're reading, where he stands in front of a bridge, an old bridge, and says the bridge doesn't look stable. But researching about the bridge, I know that it's made of stable things, but unless I have proof that this bridge is stable enough to carry me, I'm not going to walk across. Right? So what determines whether he walks across or not? Is it how the bridge just looks like that? No. Even when he knows what everything is made out of, there has to be that little leap of faith. I have to take that step to actually, in order for me to feel something that I know I cannot prove in front of me, like I cannot see in front of me 100%, I have to take that decision that I will actually immerse myself in it in order for me to feel the faith, like people say. And when we talk about that, we'll see about also how much it matters what environment we put ourselves in. Wrong and false teachings. One of the biggest things that weakens Christianity today, and I'm sorry to say this word, is how many churches and how many Christian organizations preach that faith is without works. This in of itself is very dangerous. When you start to tell people, all you have to say is, I believe, and everything is okay, to us, because we understand that faith has works, it's not a big deal. But to people who don't know the faith, this is a huge deal. This means that a murderer, or somebody who's balash murderer, this means that somebody who is going to the wrong places all the time, once he says, I believe, but continues in his lifestyle, that he's good. The idea that it's so easy like that, or the idea that there's no such thing as works, makes it seem like the faith is weak. Makes it seem like it's not earned. It makes it seem like salvation is not earned. Of course, we're giving grace, and of course, the sacrifice of Christ on the cross, of course, this is our salvation. But we have to choose to accept it or decline it through our actions. And the Bible, of course, goes through many verses. This is not about faith with works, but the idea is that faith in action is what matters. Genuine actions, right? Knocking door to door and saying, "Have you heard of the Lord Jesus Christ?" That's not what faith in action means. The only thing that did is give us hilarious TikTok videos of dogs running from their owner while saying, "Have you heard of the Lord Jesus Christ?" Right? And people make fun of this all the time. This is what it gave us. But what is faith with works? I'll tell you something very simple. When you say that you love someone, when you love your parents, when you love your brother or sister, wouldn't you say that it's stronger when you show it in action? If your parents said, they said, مثلا, George, I love you, man, but go do the dishes. Okay? And the next day, I love you, man. I know you're tired. You've had a long day at school and soccer practice. Go do the dishes. Every day. And then you go, Mom and Dad, I don't feel like, I feel, you say that you love me, but I don't believe you, right? Why? Because I'm saying that I love you, but in the same time, I'm not even considering doing something for you. But what if I said, you look tired, let me help you. You look tired, I'll do that because I love you. Now you believe me, right? لا أنت مش هنا خالص. High five. Thank you for being in my story. Okay, right? What's the idea? The idea is that if I tell my parents or I tell my siblings or something like that I love them without showing it in action, it's very hard to believe. My word has no weight. But when I show it in action, it's believable. And the same thing when it comes to faith in Christ. When I actually walk the walk rather than talk the talk, this will help me not just bring the good message to everyone, but to myself first, right? This is why Christ says before removing the speck from your brother's eye, remove the plank that's in your own eye. Everybody has a lot of things that they carry inside of them. And in order for us to be able to give the message, in order for us to strengthen others, we have to strengthen ourselves. And nothing does that more than showing this in action. Living the Christian values helps you in realizing in a challenging time how to have faith. Many people, all they have, is the good, they have good and bad experiences, but the good experiences shine more because they actually took the time to see how God works through tribulations. If I don't even consider it, if I don't consider that God can work through tribulations, for example, right? Then how am I going to say that I feel God in my life? If from the first kida trouble, I say, no. If there's a God, He's not going to do this to me. Then I'm not even considering that how He says, in this world you have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. We didn't give it time. Right? Sometimes we have to give time. It's very important for me to consider something, right? Look at, you'll see this even in Egypt more than here. There's many stories of how people may be very poor in Egypt, but you see a smile on their face and say, thank God. Thank God for what I have. Thank God for it. Where do you think this spirit comes from? It comes from them actually living the life of faith, meaning that they do the Christian works. And the more that they do the Christian works, the more that they live in a Christian way, they see how God gives them joy and how He's with them in the good time, and He's with them even more in the time of tribulations. But because we live in a world that is not very patient, to the point, I'll give you proof of this, to the point that how many of us here, we all know what reels are, right? Like on TikTok and Instagram. What's the time limit of a reel? Like 20, 30 seconds. 3 minutes? For a reel? How many of us would go through a reel that's 3 minutes? Show of hands. Barely anybody. Right? But what we're more inclined to watch or what's more funny are things that are what? like 15, 20 seconds, right? Those are the ones that get the most clicks. Why? If you look at like 10 years ago, people used to have the patience to watch things for a longer time. But today, we don't even have the patience or the attention span to go through something that's 30 seconds. It's like, now we want to scroll until we find something interesting. We live in a world that's impatient. And so it's very important because this is a big challenge when it comes to faith. I have to have the patience to see things through. Okay? The last thing when it comes to wrong and false teachings is not making a judgment about the entire faith based on a bad experience. One of the things that makes it very challenging is you'll try Masa and you'll be speaking to someone about certain doubts that they have. And then somebody will come Masa and say, the church, the people, all they do is they like to spill the tea together, right? Isn't that what gossiping is now? That you guys call it spill the tea? I got the slang, by the way. Yeah. All they do is no, guys, right? Like, nah, church is so cap, right? People are cap or whatever, right? No, it's fake. Everything is fake, right? And then what? And then you say, what happened? What happened? And you say that one time I was going for communion and Abuna told me, you didn't confess for a long time. Next time you're not going to have communion. So judgmental. So judgy. And mumkin مثلا Abuna is saying it out of care and love. Or maybe even, let's say, a bad experience happened with Abuna or with a servant. This cannot change the entirety of the faith in my heart because of a bad experience. Right? We live in a world that says, don't judge the book by its cover. We have to be accepting. We have to مش عارف إيه. We have to be open-minded. But as soon as مثلا Abuna does something that we don't like, the whole Egyptians, right? This Egyptians, Egyptian parents, Egyptian Abuna, Egyptian servants. صح? اشمعنى بقى? So it's very important that we don't judge like make a judgment about the entire faith or let experiences that happen because of people taint the understanding of the faith in my heart. The faith is pure. People's actions sometimes aren't. Does that make sense? Like one of the biggest arguments, for example, whenever people start to say like, oh, you can't say that, you say that Islamic terror is because of their belief. Well, Christianity, there was the Crusades. Isn't this one of the most common arguments? The Crusades. The Church of Rome, Catholic Church, 1,000 years ago, they did this and they did that. Okay, does this make the faith impure? If somebody decided to do something wrong, somebody in the leadership of the church decided to do something wrong, does that mean that all of Christianity is wrong? No, the faith is pure and the faith is innocent of people who do things like that. So it's important when I'm considering and when I'm thinking and when I'm trying to live a life of faith and face the challenges in this world, that I don't put into the consideration an experience that I have as the general rule that this is what Christians or this is what Christianity is. The last point is about spiritual warfare. So as we said, when we talk about faith, we're talking about something spiritual. There will be wars. Wars in everything, right? One of the biggest things that actually makes a lot of people fall off and not have faith, boys, right? Is a lot of times we cannot face ourselves. This is the biggest war that the devil does. Whenever I fall into a bad habit or a sin, I look at it like that's it. I have to cancel God's existence. What's so important about faith? Well, everybody's living fine without a faith. Why do I have to have this burden in my heart of having to be judged? Right? This is the biggest war. The war of facing myself with my deeds. This is a spiritual war, and the devil will do this. The devil will try to convince you that the sin that committing sin is it's okay. And it will give you a million justifications, right? Like, if I know that I shouldn't be doing something, right? If I start debating with this thought that comes in, the devil will give you 100,000 excuses to why this is correct, and even biblical things. طب ما even David did this. طب ما even مش عارف إيه. Who says that this is wrong? And he will convince you. And then as soon as you fall, guess what will happen? He will make you feel filthy. How are you going to go tell Abuna? How are you going to face your parents? Look at you, you're so filthy. You're disgusting. How can you let yourself fall in this? You're so much better than this. Right? These are the things that happen. So there are wars. There are wars and troubles. Whenever another thing that makes people fall off is when there's tribulation. Whenever we go through a tough time, we notice people say, if there is a God, why would he allow why do bad things always happen to good people? Why is there suffering in the world? Why is there مش عارف إيه? Right? The idea of tribulation. This is a spiritual warfare that God isn't present during the time of tribulation. And finally, doubt. Now, we're going to get into detail when it comes to doubt in the second session, but it's very important to recognize something. Doubting, when I give in to the wrong side of doubt, it will make me just doubt everything for the sake of doubting. I want to doubt everything. I want to be a critic. How many of us here like critics when it comes to movies or something? We always say the critics, like we always know they're going to have something negative to say. Do we want to be associated with something like this? Think about it. But this is one of the most common wars. Whenever we give in to the doubt in the wrong way, it doesn't allow us to see the truth or see the right thing. So I want to leave you with this, right? This is, I think, lecture number 1. Going into the rest of your lectures for the rest of this retreat, I want you to truly accept the fact faith might not be the easiest thing or strong faith is not usually the easiest thing that we can accomplish kida. But I want you to truly consider that there are many goals to faith other than just believing in God, that we need to recognize God's love for us, like we said, that faith helps us be a complete person and know our worth in this world and be able to stand and fight for what is right. And I want you to accept the challenges as well, right? Cope with proof, the idea of proof, do the research, recognize and avoid wrong and false teachings. If we're not educated in the faith and in the world around us, we'll never be able to face this challenge. And finally, recognize and acknowledge that there is a spiritual warfare, and this can only be fixed with your spiritual life if it's on the right track. So put these things in mind, and you will learn a lot from the stories you will read and from the workshops. Many wonderful stories about how people go through the journey of doubt and then they come back, and people that start with faith and they go to doubt, so that we can learn what to avoid and what to do in our life and how to consider things in a practical way in order for us to take this leap of faith. Agreed? Any questions? Glory be to God forever, amen. No clapping, no clapping.
Finishing 1 minute early. Okay, please stay seated. Everybody should have a badge. The badge needs to be on your neck, not under the seat, not in the chair, not somewhere else. So if you don't have your badge on, you're not part of the conference. We can't. Okay, so right now I need you guys to thank Corollos, Jacob, Corollos, Jason, Sam, and David. They all earned $1, and if they sit again up front, it's gonna be 5. Those 6 only. And if you want to start adding, there are 2 more chairs over here. So start tracking up your tab. Next time it will be up to 6. Okay, right now I had to take 3 phones away from people that persistently kept touching their phones throughout the lecture. I don't want to do that, so I'm going to right now give them back in a chance for me not to have to do this. You're old enough, please make sure your phone is away and your attention is given to the speaker. I can't say it any slower than this so everybody can understand. Please, attention to the speaker, okay? Good? All right. Number 2, timing. What's the time right now? 10:30 is when your first game starts. Your second, after that, it's for 1 hour. After that, it's a workshop. You need to show up at the workshop on time. If you're late, you get tardy. Okay? And if you get tardy, I take your phone for the rest of the day. Go!